when it appears that a lawsuit has to be filed to vindicate the rights of the client, the location of the lawsuit can be in a number of places. It is usually set by either a state law or a federal law, depending. And I'll give you some examples. Let's say you have a local perpetrator and a local victim. Okay? You would typically file the lawsuit in the local state court, or if the actor is a governmental actor, you might file it in state court or potentially federal court. And the reason for filing in federal court would be twofold. Federal courts are more familiar with the federal civil rights claims that I typically bring when I file claims against governmental entities. And as well, federal courts draw jurors from a number of counties surrounding the federal district. In state court, you're going to be dealing with state court judges who have a lot more happening in their courtrooms usually. They may not be as familiar with the laws, federal laws in particular, and you're drawing a jury solely from, let's say, Jackson County, where we are today. You would only get jurors from that county. So you limit the possibilities of who could be a potential juror. But strictly speaking, if you have a local defendant and a local victim, it's filed in whatever courts there might be in that county or that district if it's a federal court. Now, if you have, let's say, a defendant who has moved. Let's say a defendant moved to California and you're still living in Oregon. You want to sue that person. Let's say that's the only individual involved. There's no, corporate entity involved or employer backup this way. You would have to sue the defendant where the defendant resides. So if the person's moved, you got to file it either where they live or where the abuse took place. Okay, so you have a choice there. You have California, for example. You can go down to California and sue the guy where he lives, which is probably not necessarily what you want to have to do if you have to schlep hundreds of miles to this guy. If it happened in wherever the abuse happened, you can usually file it there. And if you have two different state residents, you can file it in a federal court down where the defendant resides, or a state court. So there's that. There's also the other thing, if you have a corporate entity that, say, somebody worked for a national company whose headquarters are in Washington State, and then the defendant, perpetrator, has moved to California, but you're still in Oregon, where do you file? Well, you can file anywhere, basically, at that point. You can file it in Washington if you're going against the organization and the individual. You can, and in either state or federal court. You can file it in Oregon and state or federal, or you can file it in California and state or federal. But it has to do with usually where the abuse occurred or where the defendants now reside. Yeah.